pretty quickly. Now we're being recorded. Travel styles are really individual to family. Some folks move pretty quickly, like you guys said, every 4 to 5 to 6 days. Some are a little slower, 1 to 3 weeks. Some folks push it out to monthly stays, and some even look for a little bit longer, 3, 6, or even 12 months at a shot. A lot of times this is defined by jobs or preferences. Kind of the preference side of things is some people want to explore a lot of areas, but just sort of topically. That's kind of our style. We like to go different places, do a couple of things, mind the budget, because that's always an exciting one. But then other families want to, go to one place and really explore the area deeply. So there is no right, there is no wrong to it. It's just what works for your family. The one thing I'll say from a full-time family's perspective and making the connections and seeing the other folks that are around is, make sure that you stay flexible. To be able to foster these connections with other full-time families, you need to be able to be willing to change your plans to meet up with other families. There's a couple of families that have completely thrown away entire years worth of plans just so they could travel with another family for a while. Or a lot of times, kind of the end of one year, beginning of the next year, we'll start talking to a couple of families and be like, okay, so where are you guys headed next year, and can we join you in those sort of things? The Millses, who Ryan was just talking, their initial plan for this coming year was pretty much one I've wanted to do for a while, and it was killing me not to be able to join them. But if you are traveling with friends, be sure to establish and kind of be respectful of each family's boundaries. Some folks like to have a lot of overlap time, share meal time together, and other folks need that time to reconnect with their own families. We've had differing experiences with traveling with different folks that we've kind of learned for the Setzers, we need to make sure we take time to reconnect just the four of us. Being with other people is great, but there still needs to be time that we sit at our dining room table, and that our dinner times are really our reconnecting time. All right, so does somebody else want to jump on and kind of talk about what your travel style is? What do you like to do? Do you like to move quickly, slowly? Do you like to really explore an area, or do you like to explore a lot of different areas? Anybody want to jump off of mute and jump in?
Well, we've been
Go ahead, Stacey.
Kind of on the road for about 4 years. I am a travel nurse, but we were doing like unfurnished apartments and stuff until this latest move, and we're in Phoenix now, our first RV. So contract is coming to an end, not necessarily by choice. A lot of us nurses are affected by this COVID thing and losing our contracts. But so still new to this lifestyle. We're having lots of interesting experiences. Like you said, the first year is a learning curve for us. I had never done any kind of RVing before this. Like my husband had a little bit of experience, so yeah, it's a learning curve.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, my heart goes out to the nurses. I didn't think about it until we were sitting around the table talking with friends the other day, and they're like, yeah, the nursing community is getting hit pretty hard with this. The contracts are getting tough to get, and I didn't realize they were being cut short as well. So my love to you guys. Anybody else want to talk about your travel plans or travel style?
Hello.
Hi.
We're Hope and Ben, and I guess I would say we're traveling partly for the fun of it, but also for sort of health reasons, because we were living in Chicago, and I have sort of mood issues related to the seasonal affective disorder. And we just, after, working with somebody recently, they were like, when you lived in California, your moods were better from what we've discussed. So maybe you should think about these winters. And so we said, well, we don't feel like we have a community, and we've always wanted to just try out RVing. So we said, let's just combine traveling with sort of exploring the country and different places. So what we're going to try to do is do kind of like a little both of what you mentioned, like spend a month in certain cities And then in between there, do sort of like hit national parks and fill up our, passport book, and sort of maybe do a month, in one place, and then do like, a month of like a week or 2 days, and sort of kind of combine the styles. So we're not sure how well we're going to be able to line that up, but
yeah, we just finished our first month, so we're still really new.
We're really new, yeah. And so our first month turned into 2 months, and not really being able to visit. We're in Atlanta, and I posted to the homeschool community like, hey, we're ready to get to know people and find out about Atlanta. And then a week later, it was coronavirus. So
yeah.
But I hope that combination will work. We don't know how it's going to go in terms of needing to be flexible and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is unprecedented times. I don't think any of us who have been on the road for a while. We're coming up on 5 years, and this is weird. Like, there's just no way around it. So yeah. All right, let's go ahead and talk about trip planning, which I guess we all can do right now. Not that we can necessarily take the actual trips right now. I tend to be an over planner. The Mills talked about not a whole lot of plans. I know they'll come up with ideas for the upcoming year, but they don't have real strict plans. We're good friends with the Dankins, who are part owners of Fulltime families, and they always chuckle. They're like, we don't make plans anything more than 2 to 3 days out. We don't make plans, and that sends me into a panic. Frankly, if I don't have plans for about the next 6 months, I get twitchy. But as soon as I make plans for the next 6 months, I'm like, I hate having plans. So kind of the FTF saying is that our plans are nailed firmly in Jello. So for me, I use a combination of websites. My wife and I have a shared calendar, and I use a spreadsheet because I'm a geek to plan out our travels. The websites and apps that I use and are useful is RV Parky on the telephone or on the smartphone. There's an All Stays Camp and RV app. I think it was like $10, but it's really helpful from a travel day perspective. Early on, I used Road Trippers a lot for finding cool things around places that we went. I haven't been on there so much lately. I think some things have changed, and they're pushing their paid model a little bit more than they used to be. But we've seen some really cool stuff with that. Like, we went out to Death Valley. We're over in Pahrump, and there was this like weird cave homes that had been abandoned for like 30 years. They were used back in the 70s, or more than 30 years. But they were used back in the 70s, and they were just kind of interesting. It was unlike anything we had seen. And then the ultimate tool for those who pay for it and use it, say it's the best, is RV Trip Wizard. I'm cheap. I don't pay for things on a subscription basis, so I don't use it. Like I said, I use a Google Calendar to keep track of my stays. And then I use a spreadsheet to keep track of stays, cost, mileages, notes about the campground, notes about the campsites. And then I use it at the end of the year to kind of do a recap. I can say, how many miles I drove, how many places we stopped, how much my 1,000 Trails membership cost me per night, how much the private parks cost me. And yes, if I said rvparky.com, good call. I really like that one. That's actually the trip planner that I use the most I use it mostly on my computer, but I also use it on the phone. They have an app, and it's actually really grown up in the last year or two. I used to not be the biggest fan of it, but it's much better than it used to be. Does anybody have any kind of good suggestions for trip planning? One thing that I will say is, like I said, our plans are nailed firmly in Jello. So I always know, firstly, I always know what the cancellation policy is. And secondly, I always kind of have backups to my backups. Just that way I can kind of pivot and do different things, see different people. Connecting up with other families is always pretty high on our list. But anyway, any trip planning ideas from anybody? Leon, looks like you went off mute.
Sure. Yeah. I actually use Google Maps for almost everything. The one thing, of course, that it doesn't do that many of us need to be careful of, especially in the Northeast, is bridges. I've heard RV Trip Wizard does bridges. There's also documents you can find that list out bridges, but making sure you don't go under something too low is always an issue.
Yeah, there's a website called lowclearances.com. I don't know if it's like a data file you download for your GPS or what, but supposedly it's supposed to be helpful for that particular thing. What my wife will actually do is when we do have a leg defined the night before, or the week leading up before, she will drive the route in Google Maps in satellite view. And then anything that looks like it might be an overpass or looks like it might be tricky, she'll drop down into street view and actually kind of take a look, see if you can see any caution signs or get a lay of the land. And then as we drive, she's constantly navigating, looking ahead as to what's coming up, especially if we have to change off of our route. But yeah, great. I can't believe I missed Google Maps. I use it constantly. Anybody else? Any fun ideas for trip planning? All right. The other one I'll say is use the location-specific groups for full-time families. If you're going up to the Northeast, or if you're in Florida or traveling across Texas, and the different places that you can go, the location groups are great. Again, for picking up places to go, for connecting up with other people as you're going through an area. Making connections and maintaining those connections is, to me, the biggest savior of being on the road. We wouldn't be on the road still. We wouldn't have made 1 year if it wasn't for full-time families and the connections we met on the road. And we're coming up on our 5th anniversary in 2 months. All right. Moving right along. Parking and setup. It sounds like we have a couple of folks who are pretty new, Hope and Ben and Stacy. Do we have anybody else who is really, really new to the road?
We haven't.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying we haven't left yet. We were supposed to leave on the 30th of May, and I had reservations out till August 18th, and now we're in a free fall. So we don't know when we're leaving or where we're going, and the whole original plan is just kind of scrapped. So we're as brand new as it gets.
Okay. All right. And Amy, what are you guys?
We're in a very similar situation. We were actually supposed to leave this past Friday. The kids were having a really hard time with it, but we said, don't worry, it's just being postponed. We're going to get out there. We bought an older rig in August. I was pregnant and really sick, so I had to stay close to home most of the pregnancy, but we did 2 extended trips. We did a 13-day trip and a 17-day trip, and we did meet some full-time families, which was awesome because we got our feet wet. We already homeschool, but we got to see the homeschooling community with full-timers, just a small little glimpse, but it let my 6-year-old just open his eyes to what the world could be for him. So we're really excited. We already ran into some difficulties. So listening before about breaking down and different things, that did happen for us. My husband just walked in. So we're just looking forward to taking this time to learn and also maybe see where else we can go along the way too.
Okay, good. All right, well, we can jump into kind of the parking and set up, getting to the campsite and that sort of thing. The biggest thing for parking is don't rush. There's an audience of folks around. Let them gawk, let them watch. I will usually try to kind of break the ice and be like, oh, y'all are in for a show. It's going to be slow and it's going to take me a while. If there's somebody that has come around the campground loop and they're sitting there waiting for me, if it's a tricky spot, I've been known to go back to them and be like, yo, you might want to try to find a way around me, or I'll get to a spot where they can get around me. Just take your time. Damage happens when you're rushed. That's, any time that we've ever had issues, It's either been A, because we were rushed, or B, because we've had some sort of change in procedure. Being stressed is kind of that change in procedure. Usually we try to get into a campsite during the day. We try to get there while we're well rested, kind of our stress levels down. There's been times we've been racing storms, and, certain time you just have to park the rig out of the way and wait the storm out. The worst, and I always shake my head when people do it, and I always kind of slap myself when I do it, is if someone comes to talk to you while you are parking, or while you are getting unhitched, or while you're getting set up, be polite but firm and be like, I would love to talk to you, but now it's not the right time. I need to focus on this so I don't have issues. Other people like to help. Ultimately they're going to be running around, trying to make sure spot for you. I don't trust anybody but myself, my daughter, or my wife, plain and simple. And I have had campground hosts who have gotten mad at me, and I just sort of shrug my shoulders and be like, this is how we do it. This is how I know we can do it. This is how I know we won't damage things. And it's rare, but it happens. One of the sayings that I heard very, very early in the Fulltime Families world is, he said it was a boating term. I've now since seen that it's a Navy SEAL term, is that slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Sometimes I'll forget, and my wife's like, you're really rushing around, like you're backing in quickly, or you're pulling forward quickly. She's like, just take a breath and slow down. Because that slow, it really is smooth. It gives you time to appropriately relax, gives you time to think. And then once you can relax and you can think, you get into the spots a little bit quicker than if we were working. And of course, don't be the gawkers at somebody else's, they're setting up. I'll make sure that, we may watch from the window inside the rig, but I'm not going to go out and stand at the end of the road and be like, oh, I'll check out these folks. They don't know what they're doing. And if anything, I'll go out, make a quick introduction. Hey, I'm Doug. I'm your neighbor. Give me a holler if you need anything. And then I'll walk away. I have helped a couple of full-time families out as they parked in the rain. I've walked out and just handed them an umbrella and then walked away. So just, everybody has their process. Make sure you're not intruding on that process. Water, electric, sewer. Once you get to the campsite, you may have 1, 2, or 3 of these. Electric, you're going to match it up to whatever your rig is for most convenience. If you're a 50 amp rig, or if you're in a 30 amp site, or if you're a 30 amp rig, just know that you have to manage your power to avoid tripping the breaker. You basically get 2 high use appliances at a time, and a high use appliance is anything that makes heat or cold. Your water heater, your air conditioner, electric heat, microwave, electric cooking appliances. You'll have a variety of adapters that you'll collect over the years. You don't need to run out and buy them all, but you will end up using them all at some point or another. Water, this is a do as I say, not as I do type of thing, but the biggest recommendation is to turn off the water when you leave your campsite. RV fittings, they're pretty terrible, and they are going to break or leak terribly at the most inopportune times. If you talk to a dozen RVers, most of them are going to have some sort of story about their own water leak, or they're going to have a story about how they've seen water pouring out of somebody else's rig. Don't let it be you. Turn off the water when you leave. Turn it back on when you get back. Or just understand the risk you're taking. Your sewer, keep your black tanks closed at all times until they're full and they're ready to dump. Not like a house where you can just let it run out. If you do leave your black tank handle open, you are going to get a buildup of really nasty pyramid of stuff. Don't do it. Let it fill up, dump it, flush it, move on. Your gray, leaving it open is more debatable among RVers. We do it for the convenience of it. That way I don't have to run out after everybody showers and dump it. I don't have to worry about, this, that, or the other. But it also, if you leave it open, it can leave you susceptible to like sewer flies and pests coming up, where if it's closed, they might get up your sewer hose, but they're going to be blocked by by the gate valves. One last tip on the sewer: if you get to a campsite and you open the cap and there's a little bit of like nasty water, my sewer tubes are kind of shallow, so they collect probably 2 to 3 cups worth of gray or black water or whatever I had last dumped. There's a valve that you can get from Amazon that twists onto the sewer outlet that is a valve right there, so that it has no sewer tube left after it. They're like $20, well worth their weight. And it saves you from that nasty dumping of water when you get to your next campsite. And then lastly, your awning. Awnings are weaklings, plain and simple. If you like your awning, either protect it in some way from rain and wind. Ironically, they're there to protect you from rain and wind, or from rain, not wind. But they're weak. They're weak and they're expensive, but they're not very good. It's controversial to put tie downs and poles under them. Some people do it, some people don't. Do some research as to what you think is good for you, or simply roll them up anytime you're not at your campsite, or roll them up once the wind starts getting hard. Again, you talk to a dozen RVers and they've either experienced their awning being destroyed, or they've seen somebody else's whose awning's been destroyed. Fortunately, I've never experienced it, but I've seen plenty of awnings flipped up over roofs and all sorts of things. It sucks. All right. Does anybody have any kind of tips for what you do when you get to a campsite and get set up?
So we've been at this almost as long as Doug, and my recommendation for the best thing to simplify the whole process is don't bother with any RV that's not a motorhome. We cut our time down probably 80% when we finally switched to a diesel pusher. But that's a little tongue-in-cheek, smart alecky kind of comment, but it's true too.
Yeah, I think RV types are actually one I don't end up addressing because people get up in arms. I love the aspect of being drivable. I love the trouble idea of being drivable. I personally have never found a drivable layout that's worked for our family. So, but yeah, I know I definitely do get jealous of the simplicity of you all being able to just get behind the wheel and go. Anyone else?
So I would recommend having a checklist. We have a checklist for pack up and a checklist for setup. We don't use a checklist for setup often because it's not a lot, but definitely recommend having a checklist. And then before you back into your site, pre-walk it. Walk through it. That way you can see like where the trees are, where anything is, and you're aware of any unlevelness or anything to the site, or any roots or something that you might hit with a tire and are afraid you hit something. But that way you kind of know your site before you even move your RV into it.
That is a fantastic. We should do it every time we do it. Even pull throughs, we'll stop in the campsite and get out and walk it first. Good call. Anyone else? All righty. So the opposite of campsites is going to be boondocking. Boondocking is camping without a lot of different you talk to. There's a lot of different terms for basically the same thing. It's what you keep talking out in the wilderness outside of an established. This is a lot of different boondocking down that. There's your gang. Having all the problems, or is it just no problem? I am breaking up. I'm like in the armpit of Florida right now. Am I any better? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So I am in the armpit of Florida, in Mayo, Florida, because we're in the county that has the least population of all Florida. It's great when you're hiding a worldwide virus. It's terrible for cell service. My apologies. So boondocking. Boondocking is camping without hookups, and really kind of, if you're curious, you talk boondocking, get all Twitter, when you call boondocking something other than camping in the wilderness outside of an established campground. To them, they're going to say dry camping is when you're parked in the campground, but it has no hookups. So national fall into this category. Mooch stocking is favorite terms is when you're parked in their house, sometimes with limited services. There's times we'll mooch stock and just be able to plug into a house without in there. Other times, which very hookup for us. And then Wally docking is my favorite travel day secret is parking in a commercial parking lot. Walmart, Sam's Club, Home Depot, or we're using our Harvest membership, depending on how many we want to get in. When you're boondocking, your power, you have to supply your own power. Kind of split in between your 12-volt system, which is battery power, and operate things like your lights, your thermostats, a handful of other things. And then you have your household power, pretty much anything that you would plug a regular cord into. That's going to be things like most TVs, TV player, your game systems, microwave, that sort of thing. 112 volt power is either going to come from a generator or it's going to come from your batteries using an inverter. The inverter setups can range from very, very simple that you plug into a cigarette lighter, just the outlet directly on it, to very, very advanced where you have whole house systems that is passing through power to some things, not to other things, and everything in between. When we talk about generators, we have to talk about generator etiquette. Really, your generator's number one use is there to recharge your batteries. For me, the batteries are what tend to run most everything else, except for any high-use appliance. So for me, that's kind of microwave and above. I want to run simple things like my TV, my DVD player, the game systems, kids their Switch and their Wii. I want to run them on the inverters, so I don't have to be running the generator all day long. The idea with generators is that you want to run it as little as possible. People who've been talking, they want to hear the generator running. People who've been talking, they want to hear the wilderness and nature. Run your generator in established generator hours. And then really kind of pay attention to your surroundings. If you're in a Walmart parking lot and there's no residential homes by, and you're comfortable with carbon monoxide, run your generator as much as you want or as need. But if you're out in the woods or out in the desert, it may how far that generator goes to run and carry. Water, basically, you have to carry your water in and carry your water out. Fresh water, you come with a tank, and then if you need to refill, you either take your rig out or you go take a bladder or some protection, type that up, and you get water. And then, the gray into the black water coming back up. You're going to move a rig to a dump station and something. You're going to have to carry that wastewater to a dump station in some way. The gray area is gray water. It's been amongst RVers, sometimes the humidity, whether or not it's appropriate to dump gray water out on the ground. Research your decision. I'm not. All right. Any luck with audio now? Any better? Any worse? All right, Michael Better. Oh, sorry guys. I'm literally flipping between Wi-Fi and not Wi-Fi. It works for a bit and then it stops working. The last thing to talk about is where to go. First and foremost, the Boondockers Anonymous branch group is a great place to go. Campendium website and freecampsites.net are both good ones. Both of them you have to be a little careful about rig size. Kind of check where you're going, make sure you can get your rig in. And then the last thing I've heard talked about, but I've never actually seen in person, are MVUM, motor vehicle use maps. These are supposed to be good for national forest, telling you which roads you can traverse and, kind of giving you an idea where you can camp. Anybody here, do you boondock? Do you have any tips or comments about boondocking? No boondockers? Anybody want to boondock?
Sorry, Doug, I missed the question. I was arguing with my 6-year-old. So this is the Millses again. So we boondock, as you know. I will pass on the biggest learning we had from boondocking was, so the inverters will all have low voltage shutoffs on them, or most of them will. You can set your low voltage shutoff so you don't damage your batteries, but your 12-volt systems will continue to run. So we were in Colorado, and a cold spell came through that night, and so our furnace kicked on and ran. We woke up in the morning, and our batteries were showing 9.5 volts, which is very bad for a battery. Those were brand new 6-volt AGM batteries that we had just gotten, and we basically ruined them in the first month of owning them. So just know if you're boondocking and you're running through an inverter, your 12-volt stuff, even after your inverter kicks off and kills all your 120, your 12-volt stuff will continue to pull a draw from those batteries.
Yeah, that's a good call. Pretty much anybody that wants to do boondocking, one of my first recommendations for them is a proper battery monitor, and then you look at the automated cutoffs. I'd rather my batteries go off on me than have them damage, especially considering what can be spent on batteries. Okay, so the websites I talked about, I'm seeing a message in the chat, was Campendium, freecampsites.net, the Boondockers Anonymous branch Facebook group, and then I also forgot about Boondockers Welcome, which is a paid membership, which we'll talk in the next section, but is good for finding kind of fill-in places here or there. All right. Any other comments about boondocking? Okay. Sorry, I'm taking notes as I go. Okay. Memberships. There are 1,000,001 different memberships and 1,000,001 different reasons why you would want some of those memberships. I'll talk about the couple that we considered and we either have or don't have. 1,000 Trails is a hard one. It's a hard one to beat the value for it. And then it's also one of the greatest places to go to almost guarantee that anywhere in the country you are, there will be another full-time family in the park. It's very rare that you'll go somewhere that doesn't have another FTF. Pretty much anywhere you go in the system. There's different membership levels, and there's like a yearly zone pass for a portion of the country. There's, bigger buy-in passes that give you the whole country, and then, additional benefits. It could be a great money saver, but absolutely it's not required. And I think that's one of the biggest things I see people do is they run out and they buy this multi-$1,000 1,000 Trails membership when they are considering going full-time, without really knowing if they're going to like the parks or if they're going to get use out of it. There's cheaper ways of getting into it. And frankly, I know there's a couple of families who don't have it and are perfectly happy without having it. So do your research, make sure it's something that's going to work for you before you shell out the money. It does absolutely save us a tremendous amount of money every year. I can't say we wouldn't full-time without it, but my budget sure loves having it. Harvest Host is a really fun one. This is where wineries, farms, and different places, and I guess they've added a golf course option, basically open up their parking lots to RVers. You call, a day in advance and be like, hey, I'm coming through the area, is it okay if I, stay the night? The etiquette is that you arrive during business hours and then you make a purchase at the establishment. For wineries, it could be a wine tasting or a bottle of wine. For me, it only really makes sense to stop and pay for things that I normally would. We hit a farm one time and we stocked up our fridge on, fresh eggs and meats and all sorts of things. But again, they do want you to arrive during business hours. So I don't know what different people's overnight plans are. We don't actually overnight all that often. I paid for Harvest Host all of 2019 and didn't use it. And I actually renewed for 2020, and I don't know if I'll use it. But I love the idea. Anytime we've stayed has been excellent. Passport America is a discount program, so you get a half-price discount at different campgrounds, and they can be really good. Usually there's a lot of restrictions, seasonal or midweek only or whatnot. But if you can actually adhere to the individual campgrounds restrictions, it can be a money saver. Coast to Coast is another membership that's a lot like Thousand Trails, where they have membership parks and you can stay for cheap or reduced cost. I don't have it, but I do have some friends who do have it. Boondockers Welcome is another one that I mentioned in the talking group. I just dropped my damn phone. That I mentioned in the boondocking talk. It's basically homeowners who are also boondockers, and they'll open up their property to let you boondock on it. It can be anything from just a spot in the driveway to a side yard. A lot of times the owners are really friendly. They'll come out and talk to you and hang out with you. And, usually it's no hookups, but every once in a while you'll find them. Usually it's also just a couple of nights, but I've heard of 1 and 2 week stays happening for some small cost. And then lastly, FMCA, Family Motor Coach Association, and Escapees are both really, really big groups that can be helpful for discounts. Escapees does a lot from the political side of maintaining the rights of RVers. And then Escapees also has a neat weighing program that I'll talk about later. But yeah, that's kind of the big ones that I'm thinking of offhand. Does anybody else have any other memberships that they find helpful? Can you all hear me, or am I breaking up again? All right, I'm good and I'm clear. Nobody just wants to talk. That's fair. That intimidating recording button up at the top left. All right, let's talk about gadgets and gear. I had a few things that I said were required equipment for me to go full time. The first one is an electric monitoring system, or EMS. It basically protects your RV's electrical from miswired campground spots to low voltage to high voltage to all sorts of things that you'll find. What you'll find at stores is either like a $100 to $150 surge protector or a $300 plus EMS. Unfortunately, the surge protector just doesn't protect you well enough, and an EMS is really what you want. There's two big names in it. One is SurgeGuard, and the other is Progressive Industries. Both are very, very good. The next one that I'll talk about that was required equipment for me is a tire pressure monitoring system. Once I was putting my family into the truck and everything that I possibly owned into the RV behind me, I did not want to fathom the idea that I would get a flat, it would turn into a blowout, and that, it would start to either damage the rig or send me into more of a catastrophic situation. The tire pressure monitoring system has gone off for me. It's alerted me to high pressure systems when I had a belt break in one of my tires, and it's alerted to me to low pressure situations when I picked up a nail driving down the road. Most of the time when people say they have blowouts, they don't have a blowout. They have a flat that they drove on for too long, and that turned into the tire coming apart and beating the crap out of their RV. The next one that gets controversial is water filters. You can go very, very simple with a Camco inline hose water filter, and then you can go really, really crazy with multiple filter systems. I use a system called the Clear Source with 2 filters. It's stupidly expensive for what it is, but it's actually a really good system. But then we also still filter all of our drinking water with a Berkey water filter. And then there's everything in between. I basically recommend that you do some research, ask questions on the members group, figure out what works best for you, and run with it. A grill and kitchen appliances are really going to be personal decisions. If you want to get RVers in a group all riled up, tell them that your Blackstone is better than their Weber grill, or your Weber grill is better than their Coleman grill, or you don't see why anybody would waste the money on a Blackstone. It is just good fun to get people all weirded out. I have a Weber Q because it was a good size for my family, and that I could convert it to low pressure so I can plug it right into my RV. And then kitchen appliances, every family's different. What I deem a must-have, other family is like, that's stupid. Why would I ever have that? Things like Instant Pots, air fryers, and ice makers. Alrighty. We have about 10 minutes left in our hour. There we go. Bodie with the Traeger. The Traeger grills are good. I've actually even seen people carry a big green egg around them, or one of the smaller eggs with them. That's like stupidly heavy. All right. Any other gadgets or gear that you consider must-haves? Seeing crickets. All righty. Traegers are really nice grills, though. I'll give you that. Okay, I got 2 more topics to cover. The first one, I'll jump to the second one. Memories, especially for you folks that are very, very new to the road. Think about how you're going to record your memories, whether it be pictures or video or whatnot. Think about how you're going to keep them accessible to you down the road. I actually have uploaded to Flickr, the website, into albums that are date and location specific. So I can look back at my last 5 years and see nearly over 20,000 files or 20,000 pictures and a few videos here or there where we are. And then we actually display them on our TVs, and that's kind of fun. YouTube can be fun. It's a very crowded space if you're considering it for making money. The folks that do it, there's some really great resources in the bloggers branch. But just, do it for you. It's pretty unlikely you're going to do it for money, but, if it works out, it works out, and good for you. And then lastly, I'll say is don't let recording memories get in the way of enjoying the moment. Unfortunately, I've seen too many times, and I've been guilty of it. I shouldn't say it as other people. I've been guilty of witnessing entire events through my camera lens or through my phone screen, recording whatever I'm doing. Make a point to put the phone down, make a point to put the camera down, and really just enjoy the moment. But keep in mind how you're going to record memories in the future. All right. Got about 5 minutes, and I want to talk about my most important topic. So if you're still listening, thank you. Weights. I am known as the Fulltime Family's weight nag. I have been involved with weighing other people's rigs. I've gone to the truck stop with them. I can safely say in all of my time of following the Facebook groups and talking to people over Messenger one-on-one that a good 90%, if not more, of full-time families are running over weights. And I'm not talking about the people, I'm a chubby dude. I'm talking about their RVs themselves. The consequence of running your rig overweight can be the fact that your frame very well may buckle. And I don't say that because, it's a pie in the sky possibility. It happened to me. I was in California and I was stranded. I literally had a guy tell me, he said, you should take this straight to Camper World and trade it in. I'm like, but that's my house. That's my everything. And I'm one of 6 or 7 families and full-time families who have experienced frame failures. So it happens. It really does happen. Your RV is designed to carry a certain amount of weight. Your RV is designed to tow a certain amount of weight behind it for the drivables. Bear the weights in mind. They matter. Fortunately, weighing is way more intimidating than it is difficult. I have a mantra of weigh early, weigh often, a lot like voting. Get out there, and I try to weigh every 6 to 8 months, or if I'm in the middle of some major renovations or changes, I'll weigh even more often. You can weigh pretty easily at truck stops. The pilots, Flying J's, anything that has a weigh scale. There's instructions on the fulltimefamilies.com websites written by me, shocker. And it tells you, for your rig type, how do you weigh it? What do you do with the numbers once you weigh it? Because once you weigh, you're going to get 1 to 3 paper slips. And then you're going to decide, what to compare those numbers against. Escapees has a smart weight system, but they actually have scales that go to each individual tire position, and they weigh that tire position. If you're near any of their locations, I strongly recommend getting individual wheel weights done. The other option for individual wheel weights is some RV manufacturers will put on their own rallies, not as cool as full-time family rallies, but they will put on rallies, and they will often bring out scales to them. And it's actually something we've talked about with full-time family rallies, and I think even one of our full-time family members, he's very seriously considering buying a set of scales to do weighings for people. So, anybody have any comments on weights or memories?
As always, I have a comment, Doug. The cat scales, it makes life a lot easier if you go ahead and download the app and create an account. That way you don't have to go back inside and talk to anybody. You literally just do all the weights right from your app. And make sure you do reweights when you do it for your second weight and your third weight, because it takes the cost from $11 to 50 cents.
No, it's like $1.
Or $1, whatever it is. Just make sure you do the reweights or second weight and third weight, not a whole new weight. But download the app. It makes life much easier.
Yep. Yeah, that's the very first thing I talk about on the article, so I completely agree with you. I get crazy now that I have the app. I'm like, all right, I'm going to weigh this axle, and I'm going to pull forward 4 feet. I'm going to weigh this next axle, and then I'm going to weigh. Yeah, I get nutty. I love the app. Any other comments, weights, or memories? Hope?
So I was super anal about the weight thing. Am I broken up? Maybe. 1 second. But it was super useful because our first weight, we did it right when we arrived, at our site, like right before we came over here, and we were slightly over. It was because we had brought it in to get some work done, and the dealer actually left our gray tanks full, and we were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're 300 pounds over already. And so we were still we were right on the line, of being over even without the water weight, we think. But it's super great to start out knowing right landing that we already have to lose some weight. But I'd rather know that than be buying more stuff and being in even worse shape. So I'm happy that we took that seriously.
Yeah, I pulled out of my house and we drove to Florida from Maryland, and then we stopped at Escapees on leaving Florida, and they're like, yep, you're 500 pounds overweight. I'm like, crap, I haven't got anything started. So we had a major purging going on very early on, and then we didn't take it serious, and then we ran overweight and buckled our frame, and now I'm much more adamant that we stay under our weights. All right. Any other comments? Alrighty. Stephanie, do you want to wrap us up?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm working on tomorrow's schedule. Yay! Yeah, I don't think I think you've covered a lot, which is great. I don't think I have anything to add. We will post this later in the group, so anyone can go back and rewatch it. And we will post the topics that you talked about, right, Doug? We gonna share that?
Yeah, I'll share it here in the group, and then you can share it to Facebook later.
Okay.
I'm taking a social media hiatus.
That's okay.
So,
Completely understand.
Somebody else to do it for me.
Awesome. No problem.
In the chat yeah, sorry. In the chat is the link to the Google Doc that I, sort of read from today.
Does anyone else have any other additional questions, comments? Otherwise inappropriate? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, open it up that door. From the inappropriate side of things, if anybody, I am taking a break from Facebook directly, but I still am on Messenger. So if you do have any questions, comments, or witty commentary, feel free to reach out to me directly. I have no problem talking and chatting.
Well, we appreciate you coming out and doing this for us tonight, Doug. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks, everybody, for joining and listening and talking.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Video